Hi, everybody. Good morning, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Graham?
Yeah, really good. Suzanne, you should want to tell everybody about what you do, who you work for, and I guess your route into the world of education.
Graham, that's quite a big task. Where do I start? So I work in FE, and I've worked in FE since September 2005. Um, Before I joined FE, I worked in primary schools. I worked with vulnerable children, children at risk of exclusion, and I loved it. I loved that job, but there was always something in us that wanted to teach and share my knowledge with older people. So I didn't believe in the primary curriculum, in all the testing. I didn't think it was good for children's self-esteem and well-being. So the best route for me, really, for my own morals, was to teach within FE. And luckily, I got a job teaching early years, child development, child psychology, safeguard, and what have you, to people who actually then wanted to go on and teach and work with children and young people themselves. Following that, I've worked my way up within the department, within healthcare and early years. I became a senior lecturer in that department, and then quality coordinator. And that meant I took on the role of looking after healthcare early years and public sport and public uniform services. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm still teaching, even though these crazy times are upon us. I'm still teaching, still loving it, still mega busy, but I have a little bit more hands-on with organising what needs to happen.
Brilliant. Well, as you know, this is a full week of education, and we're looking at secondary school, we're looking at colleges, we're looking at university. We've even got the dreaded Ofsted people in, although he's a really nice guy, so we should have some good feedback from him. Interesting in terms of what you're saying about one, psychology, two, mindset, so we'll certainly pick up on that. But you probably came into, I guess, your career a little bit later. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at how it all happened, I did everything back to front, I suppose, not the traditional route. So I was at university, and I fell pregnant when I was there the first time round, and that resulted in my wonderful daughter, who's now a primary school teacher herself, ironically. And after I had Chloe, I then went on to have Jack. Because I didn't want Chloe to be an only child and what have you. So it was after I had two children that I actually went back, but I also changed my career focus. My original focus, I had decided I wanted to be a PE teacher, and that went out the window because I was so interested in my children's development. And I was really intrigued with how children think, how children learn, and that really inspired my career goal after that, I suppose. So I went to university with two young children after being a dropout, essentially, and I did particularly well. And I got a job straight out of university with two young children, obviously determination to get through it. I had a driver all the way through. It's me, and I don't know if I've shared this with many people, but just before I started my degree, my dad died, and I promised him that I would do my degree. So I suppose grief and love and that promise to my dad was a thing that really drove me to the end, and I think that had a little part in me doing particularly well in that. Following that, I went straight into a job as a homeschool liaison officer, the very first one in South Tyneside. Developed that role and then moved on.
Wow, you mentioned your dad there, and that's really interesting to hear because I agree. People who tend to be successful, and when we talk about success, I don't think we just always talk about the financial side of success. I think it's just general happiness and fulfillment. But you need a driver. You need the passion as well, because without that, actually, it's too easy to stop, isn't it? So we always look at defining that why. You got to define that why first.
Absolutely. I went against sort of I I don't know if, I think it was old-fashioned views of older members of my family, like Nana Lou, who I adore, you know, and my mum weren't so keen on supporting us initially. They thought, I'm a mum, I should be in the home, I should be looking after my children, with them being so young. But then once I was into it, and once they could see how successful I was becoming, and you know, achieving high grades, and they could see me thriving, they really got on board. You know, they really, really did. But it was a tough decision at first, thinking I was going against the wishes and having that motherly guilt. Is this the right thing to do? But ultimately, I had promised me dad. How could I break that promise? I would never get that chance again.
And then you've continued to book the trend a little bit. And I've worked a lot in the world of business education sport over the last 20 years, because that's what my business does. And with teachers, one of the things that you see a lot of, and whilst I say teachers, I mean primary school, secondary school, university, college, you know, I'm lumping you guys all together. One of the things that I see is that once you get into any kind of institution, you stop that personal development a little bit. So we run a program called the GT10 program, which is very similar to a business executive coaching program, but purely for teachers who get a lot of curriculum development and knowledge, but then forget about who they are. So you've booked that because you went back to your third time back to university just recently, by the way, wasn't it?
Yeah, very recently. So what I decided was I was getting a little bit, I don't know if the word is stale, or a bit, I wasn't challenged anymore, and I was getting a little bit bored, perhaps.
We've been using comfort zone quite a lot during this month in terms of people who we've been talking to,
Right.
and we get comfortable. And I think when we
Yeah.
get comfortable, we do get stale. I think that's a really good word to use, Suzanne.
Yeah, well, I was feeling that, very, very much feeling that. And I went to see my manager at work and said, look, I'm really not feeling that there's going to be much career progression here. You know, there's nothing, nobody's leaving anytime soon, and I'm just getting a little bit bored with doing the same old. And I love my students, I love working with people, I'm very much a people person. And I really had to reflect on, where do I want to take my next career steps? And I had a chat with my manager, and I've always loved teaching child psychology, you know, theories of thinking, theories of learning, and sharing that with students and helping them to apply things in order to support children that they are ultimately going to work with. And I decided to have a little look at the educational psychology route.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite an intensive training commitment. So at first, you've got to do a 3-year, a 1-year master's, which it encompasses a degree and a master's all in one. So if you can do it either 1 year full-time or 2 years part-time. So I decided to do it the part-time route. I couldn't commit to the full 1 year. So I reduced my hours at work, and then went on to study an MSc in psychology. Following that, you then have to make that commitment of a 3-year program where you have to leave work. So there's obviously the financial commitment there, you know, walking away from a salary, to then do your doctorate in educational psychology. And I'm not getting any younger, Graham, and I just thought, I'm leaving it here.
I'm
So
sure
I'm
the
not
last time we spoke, you said you're only 32, Suzanne.
I wish. I just thought, you know, my children are growing up. Do I really want to put myself into full-time study, really intensive study for 3 years, and working full-time, you know, to get that, you know, doctorate experience? Because you work as an educational psychologist for the 3 years. In order to get on the course, you need to show that you've applied psychology for a year in a relevant field. And I just thought, I'm going to be near a retirement age, really near a retirement age by the time I'm qualified. And chances are I'll have grandchildren by then, perhaps. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, no, I'm going to leave it here.
And
Yes, so I've enjoyed doing
fulfillment
psychology.
and happiness is not, and we're talking success before, is not necessarily just about pieces of paper and names,
Oh, absolutely not.
letters before your names and letters after your names kind of stuff as well. It's about a variety of other things. But I'm really keen to find out what was the driver in terms of the change, because a lot of people will get into a nice job, get paid nice money, have a nice house, have nice kids, but that's kind of a flat line, isn't it? It's a little bit boring. What was your driver to get out of that? Because business people have business coaches and executive coaches. Sports people have coaches. Teachers, who do you guys go to? You don't have anybody, do you? You don't have programs.
To be honest, I don't, you know what? It was an internal driver. It was absolutely internal. Nobody encouraged us to look at doing this, you know, or push me in any particular direction. I just knew that I had an interest in psychology. Started having a little look at jobs you could do with psychology, training involved in these kinds of things, and just had a little bit of an explore with different courses. I visited a few different universities, decided upon the one that I chose because it was accredited by British Psychological Society. That's what sort of gave that the edge. And then decided, actually, I just want to do that for me. It was absolutely intrinsic.
Yeah, and I definitely think you kick the trend with that, because I think when you get post 30, 35, 40, then I think people
Shut up, Graham.
Sorry, people get a little bit stuck. And then all of a sudden they spend 10, 15, 20 years of their life in a job they don't necessarily like, but their fear is so great they can't get out. Because obviously they've got bills to pay, they've got to look after their family. So what would you advise in terms of all of the teachers out there, in terms of, you know, like I said, business coaches have, business people have coaches and exec coaches, sports people have coaches all the time. You know, if teachers could have teaching coaches, if that's such a thing, you know,
I mean, if those, I mean, if you can go to somebody and bounce ideas off each other, then great. But my personal advice would be, what do you enjoy? What do you truly enjoy? Not just what should you enjoy, but what are you really interested in? If you've got that interest, is there something else out there that you're actually missing out on? And do it for you. You know, there's no other reason. Do it for you, do it for your family. You know, I didn't personally do that to prove anything to anyone. It was just for me, and I've done it. So I don't know, I would just say speak to people if you're feeling a bit confused or unsure, but find out what you truly enjoy and do some research. There's tons of things out there you've probably not even considered.
It's really ironic, isn't it, that we're saying to teachers that who teach all of the time that you guys maybe should have a mentor and a coach as well.
It's important. Yeah, it is. It's really important to speak to people, and it, you know, I mean, it would, I mean, I certainly spoke to my husband, and I certainly spoke to my children. And I think, I mean, one of the things that my children always say to me is, because they are really hardworking children, and they said, yeah, but you and my dad are really hardworking. And again, where has that come from? Was it always there? Was it conditioned? Was it learned behavior? Who knows? But it's always been something within me to be hardworking. And I just think if you've got that opportunity to better yourself, you know, for you, then go for it. You know, it reignites something about you. It really does.
So where do you sit on that question in regarding nature versus nurture? Or are you on the fence, there's a little bit of both on either side?
Yeah, so I think, well, I think it's more now, I've changed my opinion on this slightly. I always felt more inclined to say nurture, you know, experiences of children, what they see, what they feel, what they touch, you know, what they think about those things. That's what drives development. But I'm now more epigenetics kind of viewpoint, where maybe we are pre-programmed for certain traits or certain things about ourselves, or personalities, or drivers, or whatever, and it needs something in the environment to sort of trigger that. And then if we experience that, then then I think that's what drives that kind of thing. So I do think it's a coming together of the two. And I think scientists may disagree, may agree, who knows, everyone has different views on this, but I think there is a coming together of being pre-programmed for certain things and the environment sort of triggering that to support those behaviours or personality traits or whatever.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you in the sense that there's a lot of genetics. So we bring disposed genetics from family members. You can't rule that out. There's no science in the world that says that we can't, because we have the same.
There's no science in the world that says we can.
Well, no, it's dead easy. You just look at a photograph of your mom and you go, oh my God, I look like my mom. 10 years down the line, you go, I just sound like my mom. Or, oh my God, my dad used to behave like that. So the evidence is right in front of us with stuff like that. But a lot more of the research has been around developing the environment to maybe bring out some of those genetic disposed behaviors and traits that we have as well. Some things I think are certainly moldable and changeable, but I think until the need to change becomes greater than the need to stay the same, people won't change. They will just continue to plod, as I tend to call it, which working with Northumbria Police is probably not a great term to use with those guys. But yeah, we get stuck and we need something. And whether it's a coach, whether it's a mentor, whether it's our own self-driver, whatever it is, we need. Otherwise, we're there 15, 20 years and then it's too late. It's too late. We haven't got the reflection cycle properly done. That's a lot about you, so thanks for that.
You're welcome.
How you use that now, because when we come to college, and I was talking to a secondary school teacher as part of this program as well, and she was saying that it's a really difficult time for kids generally. They've been labelled with the snowflake generation, which is not necessarily their fault. It's the likes of our fault. It's the people who are 30 to 50's fault, because we're the ones who've created that environment for allowing them to be like that, I suppose. But then you're at college and you're making this huge transition between going from specific timetable, you're at school 9 till 4, everything's organized, everything's looked after, your food is there, you might be able to nip off to the chip shop, but everything's organized, to college where you don't have to turn up. You don't have to go to lectures. You don't have to get out of bed on the morning. Mom and dad are at work. You don't have to. It becomes a bit more choice, doesn't it?
Well, I think, right, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. I think secondary schools tend to encourage the high achievers to stay with them wherever possible. They want them. And perhaps they are now thinking, right, well, these young people here who are not particularly high achievers within GCSEs, but have many other talents and abilities, should be looking at going elsewhere. So I think FE is not always first choice for our high achievers, but it should be, because FE has so much to offer. I'll give you a little example. The number of young people that come to me post-September, October, November, saying, I've started my A-levels, it's not for me, but I was really encouraged to do this, but I'm not enjoying it. Have you got a course for me? Because I want to become a primary school teacher. And I just think, our courses within early years, are so set up to support young people to have not only the knowledge, but masses of experience. And coming to college, the developing skills that they'll be able to transfer into university, so it makes that transition to be a bit more independent a lot easier. So it's a good stepping stone. If you've got children who are on timetable year 11, timetable year 12, 13, then off to university, there's been no transition in between. FE is the perfect transition, and they're well supported, and they're working with people who are really experts in the field. They've worked in those industries as well as learned everything about them, and is continuing CPD. So I just think sometimes FE is given a bit of a bad press, if you like, when actually it would be first choice for many young people who I think are missing out.
So being controversial, Suzanne, are you saying that if you go from primary school to secondary school, straight to university and then back into teaching, you're institutionalized and you don't know anything about the real world? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, well, put it this way.
That doesn't read very good for the future generation of people, because all they're doing is getting a lower level education because there's no real life
experience. I just think, exactly. And if we're talking nature, nurture,
absolutely.
What experience have you actually, what hands-on experience have you actually got to be able to bring that and share that wealth of knowledge and experience?
So should we just change the curriculum and say until you can go into teaching, you have to have at least 3 to 5 years in the real world? Would that help?
I think that would really help a lot.
Yeah, I love that concept.
Yeah.
Right, Suzanne, I'm going to be really controversial now because you're just throwing them out. And I spend a lot of my time in education, and 2.5 days a week I'm at university. But I also lectured in HE and FE for over 8 years, and have written a lot of documents and policies and stuff like that with different organizations. But do you think education plays the blame game a little bit? So primary school, they tend to blame parents. So it's parents' fault then. Secondary school tend to blame parents and primary school for not preparing them enough. Colleges tend to blame secondary schools for not giving them the best students or not getting them to the level that they need to. And universities tend to blame everybody around them because actually they're either going to pick the best ones because they're a really good university, or actually they're not really bothered and filter them all out. Who's to blame?
Who's to blame for what though, Graham?
Education. Does it go the other way around? Who's to blame for education, or is education just blaming everybody else?
Wait a moment, I need to think about this one. We might need to pause this video. To be honest,
controversial word.
I know I am controversial, you know that.
Nice.
I think it's unfair to blame anybody, because I think everyone is doing the best that they think, give on the advice that they've been given. So I can only really go off my personal experience and from what I've seen and witnessed. And I think the best teachers in FE are those that have they've qualified in whatever industry they've qualified in. They've worked in that industry, and then they've gone back to perhaps do a PGCE or whatever, and then they can go back into the classroom and share all of that experience. And I just think that once you've lived and breathed whatever industry it is you're teaching, then I think it makes you a better teacher.
Yeah, I would agree. But then you need to continue to keep going, because once you become a teacher, if you stop, then actually you've stopped your own learning. How can we be a big advocate of lifelong learning when we don't do it ourselves?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, actually, the college I work in, they do great staff development, and I think everyone should do this. So whatever industry you're teaching, so for me, it's early years, child development and that kind of thing. And it goes right across the college. You then spend a day back in industry every year, and you can choose whatever part of that industry you wish. And it's real hands-on experience. It just reminds you of the day-to-day, what's going on. We set up meetings with managers and things like that from those industries to sort of give you the updates on what it's really like, warts and all. And so they do a really good job with CPD in my college.
Okay, cool. So with that, let's just go back to the students, because they're supposed to be the ones that are important.
Yeah, they are.
How do you guys help the transition? Because transition's a really key word. We do it all the time, from primary to secondary to college, university to job to next job, that kind of stuff. So we transition quite a lot through our lives. But it's one thing that we don't necessarily support and train and help people. because that transition's a make or break shift. So if they
Oh, it's
settle
huge.
and they're comfortable with the environment, they're going to flourish a little bit more. If they're going in and they're concerned and they're worried and they're anxious and they're nervous and they're stressed, actually then all of a sudden that emotional energy is so low. How do you expect them to learn and develop? What do you guys do to try to help them through that process?
Oh, we've got so much support, and obviously every young person that comes in your door, they all have the different issues or problems, or sometimes you don't know straight away if they haven't disclosed. So what's extremely important is developing relationships pretty quickly, because I mean I did a study, I did a little bit of research on this actually, that children who achieve higher grades actually consider themselves to have a good relationship with their teachers. So I think ultimately the relationships that you build with these young people will really, really support their achievements or non-achievements, depending on what kind of relationship you've managed to build. So I think you're never going to get all young people that like you, and it's not about liking you, it's about developing relationships to support these young people to get them to where they want to be. Every single year we get young people with low self-esteem, low levels of confidence, and you tend to find that these young people are in the lower level groups more so than the higher level groups. And these young people just need to be reminded, actually, you are so important, and let's look at all of the things that you can do, but perhaps you haven't been encouraged to do. And I honestly think it goes back to relationships. And I think if you're building these relationships with young people and supporting them and showing them, conditioning them to believe in themselves again, then you're going to see good results. So transitions, we can put in all the practical things for these young people, but I think it's so important to have sort of keep in touch days if they've applied. I don't want September to be the first time that they meet us. I want us to be seeing them a few times beforehand. I would love for them to have a tour of the college. Let's have a look around the classrooms. Let's do a typical lesson, just to check that they are happy with the choice, but that it makes that transition a little bit easier.
Okay, fab, I love that. What about those students who just slip through the net? Because there's always some students that slip through the net, or maybe their parents are a little bit kind of mollycoddling, and maybe they are from the snowflake generation, whatever they may be. What top tips would you have for kids who are leaving school? And this year is going to be a really strange year as well in terms of intake, isn't it? If you guys get back in September, or if it's January, whenever you guys get back, it's going to be a bit of a stranger intake. So what top tips do you have now for those students who are thinking, right, I want to go to college, wherever college is in the world. I want to go to college, but I'm a little bit anxious, I'm a little bit nervous about it. What top tips would you give them now for them to maybe work on during the summer?
Top tips: reach out to whatever college that you're interested in attending. Ask to speak to people, and we are doing sort of open days, open events, but all virtual. Okay. So you are actually going to be you'll be able to do a direct sort of discussion online. Some of our staff are doing little videos. I'm going to be one of them to sort of say, hello, this is me, this is the department, and what have you. Just so they've got a face, they recognise that person. We've also sent out bridging packs. So it means that they get a taster of what kinds of things they'll be studying. It'll help them to decide, is this what I want to do or not? Is this interesting, or actually is this not for me? Because it's important that they feel happy with their choice. And I always say to young people, visit as many places as you can and go with what feels right. Find out as much information as you can, and then wherever feels right probably is right.
Okay. Some great advice there. I want to finish off with one more question, Suzanne, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
I'm just conscious of time. how much has your educational psychology masters changed your way of thinking or helped any of the students?
Oh, that's a good one, Graham. I think studying MSc psychology has really supported me to truly understand the value of relationship building with these young people. And I think I've always sort of considered myself approachable, and I've always, you know, I've always considered myself as really I want the best for my students. But I think being able to apply what I know and understand that actually what I was doing previously was right, but now I understand the theory behind that, why that's important, the importance of groups, the importance of feeling part of a group and not the outsider. And you know, I'm more aware of self-esteem, I'm more aware of personality, and it just helps me to sort of identify individual needs and apply things a little bit better, apply strategies a little bit better with students.
I love that application process, because we're in the world of education where there's theories left, right, and centre. And working at Durham, we have PhD students who literally leave at 23, 24, who have more theories than actually I probably have tennis balls in my garage. But they have no application.
Yeah,
And
it's the application that's important.
And I'm doing something with online with Yale at the moment. And one of the lectures that I was listening to, can't remember what the lecture was called, but she said, knowing is just not enough. And I was like, it's so true, because
so
actually
true.
I know that I need to eat better food in order to lose weight or to be healthier. I know that I need to exercise to be a little bit fitter. We know all of this stuff. We know the theories. It's dead easy to go to Google now and pick out a theory on Maslow or whoever you want to have a look at, but it's the application process. And I think that's where we still fall down a little bit. We don't apply the theories in a language that maybe some of the younger generation really understand.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, Maslow, you know, classic example of if you don't feel good about yourself, you're never going to reach your full potential. So, you know, that's just, how do we make our students feel good about themselves? You know, how do we do that? I mean, there's many external factors that can impact on that you have no, you can't change: home life, home environment. But you would like to think that you've done your little part to support that, you know, and that you're identifying what you can with these young people. But it is absolutely about applying your theories, or applying what you know, and just trying to make that difference.
And Maslow's a great one now, and I've been using them quite a lot we've been doing Durham talks with the students there while they've been obviously in isolation as well. And we have this concept of that. I think over the last decade, we've been in that self-actualization process where, you know, everything's going quite nice. I have the latest iPhone, I have the new MacBook Pro, I have a nice car, everything's going really nice. And then you talk about Carol Dweck's fixed and growth mindset concept, and people are going, yeah, I'm in growth mindset. No, everything's just going nice. And now all of a sudden we're in self-isolation. We're starting to realize that I don't have a growth mindset. I just like winning. Because actually now I can't leave the house. Now I can't go to my job. Now I can't go to the pub. Now I can't go to the football. And we start to revert back to type. And when we really look inside of ourselves, we're not growth mindset. We're fixed, because we want to be in that self-actualization process. We're not there anymore. We're further down the pyramid.
Oh, I'm frightened to go food shopping. So it's safety. You know, I mean, my physiological needs are met, but my safety needs are not met. So there's no way I'm going to reach self-actualization. No way. I'm nowhere near that at the moment. So I'm never going to produce the best work.
That's a great old theory, a simple theory that, you know, we can start to really educate people and get them to understand where they sit in that pyramid at the time. Suzanne, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome.
You guys can subscribe and share. That would be fab. We've got a full week of education. We've got 34 different people this month. And for me, education is free. So we're giving it away. And everybody, what we'll do is we'll put little top tips together from Suzanne, and we'll download, you guys can download it as a free PDF, and we'll put some activities on there for you guys to start to think about your why, think about your driver, and make your own decisions on whether you want to go to college or whether you want to stay at school. Suzanne, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks.